You know, when I picked up Andrew Breitbart's book, Righteous Indignation, Excuse Me While I Save the World, there were two things I immediately loved about this book. First of all, having grown up in Southern California and been a part of the music scene back in the late 70s to early 80s, he referred to Billy Zoom, the guitarist of X, in his acknowledgments in the back of the book. And he also has a great love for Dennis Prager, who was instrumental as well in my political formation. So right off the bat, 2 home runs, and the book is terrific. Andrew Breitbart, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Rob, thank you very much. And the juxtaposition of X and Dennis Prager is not as weird as you'd think. I used to think that I was alone out there in Los Angeles on the roads listening to Dennis Prager. And I found out that Billy Zoom, the great guitarist from X, Joe Escalante from the Vandals,
yes,
both punk rockers, are conservative. There's so many. There's so many, and the whole book is about my emancipation, coming to realize that I was a conservative, that it was always inside of me, that I just thought that I was a liberal. And there are so many people. David Mamet has a book coming out in a month. You got to get him on the show, called The Secret Knowledge, and he discovered his inner conservative in his 60s, and he basically rips liberalism and says that basically, in essence, conservatism is water. It just is. And he writes it in the way that only David Mamet could do. There is the left is going berserk right now because we finally figured out that the reason why we're so silent and in the closet is because the media, I call it the Democrat media complex in the book, act like a bunch of bullies on a playground. And a lot of people realize that they're bullies and they don't want to get punched in the nose. But the people on the playground are starting to say, what if we do an uprising? And I think that Katie Couric losing her job is a nice symbol that the new media, the Tea Party, and conservatives who are mad as hell and they're not going to take it anymore have started to fight back.
Andrew Breitbart is our guest. His new book is Righteous Indignation. We have it linked up on the bookshelf at schillingshow.com, and I encourage you to check it out. It is a terrific read. You know, it's interesting you mentioned the bullies because I think part of the plan here, Andrew, and I'm looking at it from a local level on up as far as elections go and people willing to stand up, is now we have the politics of personal destruction, whereas if any conservative who takes a stand on an issue or has morals, they are subject to ridicule if they ever have breached or made a mistake of what they preach. The left comes forward and says, we're going to smear this person. And we saw them doing it going back to the Clinton days and maybe even before that. But now we even see it on a local level where conservatives are intimidated to even stand up and run for office.
Well, I think that that's changing because we're starting to fight back. I mean, you know, the reason why the book is and the subtitles, Excuse Me While I Save the World, and it's Righteous Indignation, is because the Democrat media complex, the natural alliance of the Democratic Party, liberal groups, and the mainstream media, impugns the motives of half of the country. They consider flyover country not motivated to create clean water, not motivated to help the children, not wanting to help the environment. If they go out there as liberals, say, I want to save the environment, that means that we're the enemies of the environment. If they say they're for the children, it means that we're the enemies of the children. If they say they're peace, it means that we're pro-war. And I'm trying to tell the country, stand up for yourself and fight these people because we're motivated by the right things. And right now, we're taking down the media. New media is taking down the media, and it's just the most exciting time in the history of media.
News Radio 1070 WINA, we're talking with Andrew Breitbart about his new book, Righteous Indignation. And, of course, you know the name Andrew Breitbart. He has so many of the websites that we visit and enjoy, biggovernment.com, Breitbart TV, and many others, Big Hollywood, that have broken lots and lots of news stories. I wonder if you could tell us a little bit, Andrew, about your own growing up in Brentwood and your liberal inclinations as a kid, because it's easy for kids to be liberals, isn't it?
Yeah, I would describe myself not as, a lefty in the David Horowitz tradition. I just describe myself as a default liberal.
Yeah.
As if the factory setting when you grow up in Brentwood. And I went to a prep high school, very fancy prep high school, where the teachers were liberal for the most part. The parents of the studio executives' kids went to the school, and everybody just basked in their liberalness. And so we just thought that liberal was normal. And that's why you have such people like Katie Couric or people like David Geffen, is that when you accuse them of being biased, they don't think that they're biased because They think that they're just the normal position, and anybody that would disagree with the normal position has to be crazy. Why would somebody be against the things that they're against? It doesn't make sense to them. It's because they haven't been exposed to conservatism. It's the reason why most people turn from left to the right is because they turned on talk radio by mistake. They listened to Dennis Prager. They listened to Rush Limbaugh because it was the first time they heard that there was a different position. And I was in my early 20s waiting tables, working, odd jobs, working for a production company, and I just started listening to talk radio. I was like, whoa, this makes more sense than my entire life of teachers and professors. There were times when I would listen to a professor thinking they're giving me the truth and I'm just too stupid to understand it. No, it was because they were trying to use big words, highfalutin words, in order to tell me something that was, in hindsight, illogical.
Yeah, it's something that we come to, I think, as we mature, and as you say, as we have the opportunity, Andrew Breitbart, to become exposed to these ideas. But I fear for particularly students in government schools these days who have no such opportunity. In fact, there is such a tremendous amount of indoctrination. You go back in your book to Gramsci and some of the others who looked at education and looked at America and said, hey, they're ripe for a takeover. If we can just control the various establishments, the media, education, and others, we can take the country.
Well, that's what frustrates me to no end about the conservative movement. We're the majority in this country, according to Gallup, 2-to-1 ratio of conservatives to liberals. Mm-hmm. But where are we as professors? If we exist, we're biting our lips and biting our lower lip and trying to go along to get tenure by professors who are not liberals but hard leftists. And so we're not in the universities. The left just walked in through the front door and said, we're going to teach your kids. We're not in Hollywood to the extent that we should be. We should be putting our money where our mouth is. If we want conservative product, you're not going to get it by telling David Geffen and Steven Spielberg to create conservative product because they don't see the world through that prism. So we have to do what they do. There are more of us. We have more money. If we want to change politics, we're going to have to change culture, and we're going to have to tell our children that there's a value getting into the arts. There's a value in learning to play the guitar like Billy Zoom of X. But unfortunately, we focus everything in the political realm, hoping every election cycle that somehow the think tanks in Washington or the talk radio hosts are going to save the day with a Hail Mary pass. And it shouldn't be that difficult. There are more of us than there are of them.
It's very true. We're talking with Andrew Breitbart. His brand new book is Righteous Indignation, Excuse Me While I Save the World. We have a link to it right now at schillingshow.com. Just click on the bookshelf button. Before we go to the break, let's take a call from Tim, and we have a line open for you at 977-1070. Tim, welcome to the Schilling Show. You're on with Andrew Breitbart.
Hey, Rob, I'm really glad I turned on the show today and caught this. No sooner had I started listening when I heard your guest speak on something that was a very familiar bell to me. You've heard me talk about this before. It had to do with the highfalutin language and big words that the liberal elite likes to use to dupe people into thinking they're being told one thing when in fact they're being told something else. And I wanted to draw a little emphasis to that the liberal media, if they didn't have that as a tool, it just wouldn't work. And you've heard me go on that many times. I'm going to sign off and let you guys speak on that for a moment.
Okay, let's let Andrew respond.
Yeah, I'm glad he brought that up because I had a breakthrough when I was watching a Noam Chomsky. I mean, he's the king of highfalutin, multi-polysyllabic words that don't even make any sense. Mm-hmm. If you listen to a complicated, complex, analysis of religion from Dennis Prager, when he's done, everybody in the crowd is raising their hands, wanting to ask a question. Why? Because they understood what he was saying. He made the complex easy to understand because he used normal language. If Noam Chomsky or Professor Michael Eric Dyson or Cornel West talk in that iambic pentameter, the deconstruction of the manifestation of the syllabi, or they use this language. At the very end of the lecture, you'll see nobody's raising their hand asking a question of Professor Chomsky or the liberal person with the superiority complex because they don't understand. They're just sitting there biting their lip and trying to pretend with their nods of recognition that they understand what's being said. Nobody understands critical theory. Nobody understands Gramsci. It took Saul Alinsky to analyze critical theory and all this jargon-based stuff that he translated it down to the street level. But when they're talking in that language, they're involved in the act of a confidence game. They're trying to trick people.
977-1070 is the phone number here on The Schilling Show. Andrew Breitbart is our guest for one more segment. We're running a little late. We do have a line open at 977-1070. The Schilling Show will return. Linda, hang on. We'll get to you right after this. Alrighty, the lines are full, but the number is 977-1070. Our guest is author Andrew Breitbart. He's much more than an author, but his terrific new book is Righteous Indignation, Excuse Me While I Save the World. And let's go back to the phones and say hello to Linda, who's been waiting patiently through the break. Linda, thanks so much. We've got just a couple minutes, so I'll ask you to make it quick. You're on with Andrew Breitbart.
Mr. Breitbart, I admire you so much, and I thank you very much. One of the things I would like to point out that is said to students who sit in the classroom, both overtly and subliminally, is that if you don't agree with the liberal philosophy, not only have you no heart, but you're stupid. My mother was a Democratic Party special events coordinator. She was paid to do all kinds of things like rallies and all kinds of special events. And in our conversations at home with her fellow yellow dog Democrats, the Republicans were stupid. There were no smart Republicans. There were no smart conservatives. And I graduated from high school in '64 when Goldwater ran. And if you thought, if you even imagined that you supported Goldwater, you were stupid. So what young person wants to be labeled as unfeeling and stupid?
This is a good point.
You have to go through your life a little bit longer before you realize that what they're saying is crap.
Let's get a response before we run out of time. Andrew?
I didn't hear any of that. For some reason, I couldn't hear her phone.
Okay, let me just rephrase it for you. She basically said that during her time in school and growing up, that the Republicans, the Republican point of view was considered to be stupid. And this is how it was portrayed in the classroom, and this is how it was viewed. And so what young kid wants to be affiliated with conservatism or republicanism when it's considered to be less intelligent or less cool?
Well, we have to fight back to get the reins of our culture back, and that means getting people to become teachers and to start teaching the truth. And so this is the problem. Gramsci and the Frankfurt School said the way to turn the country to the left, to Marxism, was not through the arguments of through the economic arguments of the haves versus the have-nots, but it was this oppressor-oppressed model. And they said, let's do a long march through the institutions, and that was the schools. We have to expose these teachers. That's what we're doing right now. We're going to start big education and tell the students, like, if you have a teacher that's saying that Republicans are stupid, we're going to upload that video to the internet, and we'll have a discussion about whether that's the appropriate thing to do with taxpayers' money.
Yeah, it's really amazing what goes on, and I think it really requires more people to become involved and grab those videos and post them. There's a line open at 977-1070. Just a little bit of time left with Andrew Breitbart. Chris, if you have a quick comment or question, go right ahead.
Hello, Andrew. How are you?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, I was a liberal for a long time, and I've been reading a lot of history over the past couple of years, and that has been cementing my resolve along the lines that you're talking, and being able to understand our founders and where they were coming from. And I applaud what you're doing, and I have written a book myself that I'm going to get published to try to stop marijuana from being legalized in this country. And I wish you all the best of luck.
Chris, thank you so much for the call. Andrew, you dedicated the book to two people. One was Clarence Thomas, who we all know, but another one was your father, whom we do not know. And I wonder if you could tell us just a little bit about your dad.
Well, I appreciate that. My dad almost died last year. He was on his deathbed, and the most decent man that I knew in Los Angeles. He talked to everyone. LA is a place where he ran a restaurant, and in Los Angeles, you're supposed to be, kind of arrogant and keep to yourself and be very aware of the social hierarchy. And my dad talked to everyone everywhere, and he reminds me a lot of Clarence Thomas. My dad got a motorhome for us and took us on a tour of the United States, and he was the happiest person in the world at the KOA. We're from Brentwood. We're not supposed to be in a motorhome. We're not supposed to be in a KOA park. But my father felt emancipated, much like Clarence Thomas. In his book, talked about getting a motorhome, going out to the American people, being at that KOA place, and finding out that your fellow American is a great person. And my dad opened my eyes up very early on to being friendly, gregarious, fair to everyone, and not having a classist, world orientation. And so he gave me my idealism.
It's a tremendous gift that he's given you. And before we go, we've got about a minute left with Andrew Breitbart. You have a lovely young family and kids that are growing up in this world. Are you optimistic for the future of America?
I wouldn't be fighting if I didn't think we could win, and that it is a war. It's not a metaphor. It is. It's a culture war. And I'm out there fighting this fight because I'm not going to hand this country. I'm going to do everything I can not to let the far left control it and turn us into the failed experiment that socialism, or whatever you want to call it, has been in every other country. America is indeed special, and I'm glad that the Tea Party has arisen, because I believe that these people are more than just a battlefront on our economic freedoms, but they're an existential front in the culture war.
You are a shining star in America's political great awakening. Andrew Breitbart, it's been a tremendous time together. I thank you for the work you've done on behalf of the country, and I would encourage people to get a copy of Righteous Indignation, Excuse Me While I Save the World. Thanks so much for joining us on the Schilling Show today.
Anytime you want. You got my number.
We'll do it again. Thank you, Andrew.